Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with June. Today I'm here with a guest, and would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Anglin Baker.
So, Anglin, what do you do? Like, what is your occupation?
I am what's called a diversion case manager, slash I'm with community incubator lead manager for the Stockton Fruit Ridge Black Child Legacy Campaign hub. So I'm located in South Sacramento.
Question: do you work with like a lot of kids?
Yeah, part of my job is working with youth. So on the diversion side, I work with teens and young people ages 10 to 17.
Do the kids you work for is like a part of like low income families and stuff like that?
Typically that's the case. It's not so for all of them, but I would say the majority of the families are would be considered low income.
I grew up in like a low income, right? One of the struggles of being like low income was that we didn't necessarily have the resources. We also didn't like were unable to afford certain things. I remember when I was a kid, like I was in like Target, right? And basically what happened was that I was basically like we were trying to like probably getting some food, and I was like I literally like I knew my mom couldn't afford the stuff. So what I did was like take like basically like took toys and I stole them. And then my mom caught me, and then she was crying and she was saying like how she couldn't be able to afford like the toys for me. You know what I mean? Even growing up, I feel like a lot of people who grow up in a very like impoverished like areas and stuff like that, they're unable to like have resources, and there's so many things that are like effects from that. And I was wondering, in you working with the kids, if you're comfortable enough to share, like what was it like working with kids who are like low income? Like what did you see like the effects of that?
Well, your story is very it's typical, right? Because when you don't have anything or you feel like you want something, you're gonna that especially if it's a necessity, whether it's food, clothing, shelter, and your back is against the wall, you're going to do whatever it takes to get those items, correct? So that's part of the, I guess, the dichotomy of everything. It's all like, well, I need food, I need clothing, I need shelter. I can't afford to do it. So what else is there? I got to go steal it. I got to go get it any way I can. And unfortunately, in our society, when people's basic needs aren't met, things, then you have to do other things in order to get it. And that's all it like really stems to. So, as a kid, if I don't have shoes on my, if I don't have shoes and I see somebody else that's got these shoes, and, I want those, I need that, I got holes in my shoes or whatnot. Well, that person looks like a perfect opportunity to go get those shoes, right? It's not necessarily about being mad or evil about it. It's just that I need shoes. So, that's kind of where peeling back the layers and understanding the underlying issues is how you can solve a lot of problems. So, criminal behavior and activity just doesn't happen. I don't believe that. There's typically a root cause of why people do the things that they do. So sometimes if you take the time to understand what those issues are, you can typically find a solution for it that doesn't involve somebody getting hurt or jailed or those sorts of things.
And I want to point that out. Like you said, like it's like a lot of like root causes and stuff like that. And I was wondering if you can like maybe give an example or like reasons or as to why, like what are those root causes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so typically poverty is associated with a couple of things. So you might live in like substandard housing, so like your house might not be, livable. Hunger, homelessness. If you have kids, if you don't have childcare, your neighborhoods might be safe. Even the schools, you might not be in a school that has all the resources and those sorts of things. So those are typically, just a handful of things that you can point to that are associated with somebody living in poverty. And when it comes to kind of, I don't know, for lack of a better term, like getting ahead or getting what you need and you want, when your roof is leaking constantly and nobody's there to fix it, or your stomach is grumbling. I mean, you think of like, when your stomach is grumbling and you get upset, right? Like you get what's commonly referred to as hangry. So when your mind and your brain isn't functioning in a way, you tend to do things that are not right, or can be deemed as evil or deceitful when you just need to get food in your stomach. If you live in an unsafe neighborhood and you're looking over your shoulder at like all times of the day and things like that, you're going to act a certain way or feel a certain way about somebody like creeping on you, especially if you don't have much and somebody's trying to steal from you. You're going to react in a way that might be violent. And that's and when you topple that with being hungry or living in an inadequate situation and stuff like that, that stuff piles on, puts a lot of pressure on you as an individual, and you might make irrational decisions and stuff that could potentially again like you know cost you your life or endanger yourself or somebody else.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I feel like it really comes down to like trying to survive in a society where like sometimes like the system like really just gives up on you. And I feel like I remember going to this one Target. Like, I don't know if like you go to this one Target in like downtown, but I noticed that like in that store, a lot of like necessities, like we're talking like pads, essentials, like for women, like shaving products and stuff like that, they're locked up. Literally, deodorant. I remember like I wanted to buy some deodorant from this place, right? It was locked up. And I was like, if they're stealing deodorant, that just means that they literally cannot afford this. And I feel like, dude, like there's so many people who are unable to afford certain things. And I feel like, like maybe like, yeah, stealing is wrong, but I feel like bottom line is that people are unable to afford it because why? Because they just can't, they don't have the money and stuff like that. And they probably like struggling to even get food. You know what I mean? A lot of people from the outside are going to see this thing and be like, like they're horrible, they're a criminal, they're evil and pure, like as you were saying, like, but it's like we really don't know like what they're going through and how they lived up to this point and why they are doing these things. These are like more so like the effects of poverty. Like these are the effects of stuff like that. Man, I remember somebody I knew, even though they were poor, like their mom would save up money and whatever they could to like, take them out to eat, to go get some burgers. And I was like, if people are struggling to be able to afford their needs, then how are they going to afford their wants, And I feel like, I see that a lot of the times when I talk to other people who were born similar to me, who grew up very much in poverty and low income families and stuff like that. I am currently right now in a far better condition than I was like 10 or no 5 years ago, you know what I mean, even 2 years ago, you know what I mean. I'm in a very better environment and also like that. And I also want to say that growing up in poverty too, the areas, you have limited options in where you can live. So the apartment that I used to live in before was like this Meadowview apartment. And like we, it was very nice and stuff like that, right? But when we moved to like Parkway, like the opposite side of where I live right now, it was very much the safety was lacking. The safety was very much lacking. Like there was barely like, like there was like, yeah, like a fence, like a gate, but it was like, it was just so run down. It was so like horrible. Like, like we had roaches, we had rats literally coming in, but the landlord didn't care because there was like this thing called like rent control. So I didn't know it at the time, but like, it was limited in how much we were supposed to like pay. And that kind of, and I kind of learned in economics that like there's like rent control. It discourages landlords or people to like basically renovate the whole apartment complex. And I didn't know that. You don't really have a choice as much, even, and I feel like, yeah, like I'm in a better situation now, but it also really did taught me how to be humble and respectful when I go into other people's houses. Just because it doesn't look nice or clean and it maybe even have ants and roaches crawling around, I mean, I cannot judge this person because, like, you know what, the system has really given up on a lot of us, and like they don't really care as much.
Thanks for sharing that, by the way. I'm always appreciative of people that share their stories. I often kind of ask myself two questions when people share, and one of them is like, am I, do you want me to listen or do you want me to provide an answer? And 99% of the time it's just to listen, because all of those pressures and things that occur in people's lives and whatnot, sometimes it's just an opportunity to like get it out. And then also too, like to be able to reflect on things and situations, and like you said, like being humble about it, and understanding that everybody's story is unique and dynamic, and it's not for us to like just oppress upon like what our particular values and situations are. Because for me, there's a level of and I say this loosely, there's a level of privilege that I have, that another person might not have when it comes to a certain situation. And it's not for me to impose, my ideals and stuff on that situation because the background might be totally, totally different. It's okay to school people every once in a while on things and bring things to light, but our first activity should be to listen and understand where they're coming from first, and then ask permission whether or not they want any advice or tools and able to make a situation potentially better.
And I respect that so much, Anglin. I've noticed like that about you, that quality that you are always there to listen. And like, and I so appreciate that so much because sometimes like, when I share stories, I do appreciate when somebody does relates, but sometimes like, I just want somebody to listen. And I feel like I was going to ask you like what are should be the solutions to poverty and stuff like that. And I know I don't expect it to end overnight. I don't expect that. We could definitely work towards that. But I think that one of the solutions is probably listening and understanding. You know what I mean? And I really appreciate that. And I feel like, if we could all listen to each other and instead of like you said, imposing whatever you believe in, this and that on the other person and just really trying to like get and understand that person, maybe the world would change. I feel like the world would change if we just started listening to other people and just to have that empathy and be like, dang, like that person has gone through what they gone through. And that's, I respect that and stuff like that. And I just wish that, a lot of people were able to listen and to see like, hey, like not everybody lives the same way. And for those that are living a lot less than the other average person, what can we do about it? Like, what can we do about it instead of being like, like, oh my God, well, I don't see that at all. I don't even like listen. I don't even, this and that. But I just feel like if we could just like listen to people, that would be like a step, a milestone. Like, that would really just be it for us, like people listening. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, the oh, no problem at all. Yeah, and I appreciate you too, like just having this opportunity to be able to open up and have dialogue. This is a great vehicles like this that you're putting together. I know this is for school and class, but I hope by doing something like this is an opportunity for you to kind of like spread your wings and your skills. Being able to have a vehicle, podcasts and media is definitely a tool that can be used for change. You look at, earlier in a couple of years ago with a lot of the fights surrounding like, George Floyd and others that have passed, Breonna Taylor, before that, Trayvon Martin. You're talking about movements that started and occurred, through what you call it, technology and using things like Twitter and Facebook and Instagram to be able to and WhatsApp to be able to communicate and talk about, hey, like show up here and do this and connecting with your local politicians and other people that have resources and like all of these things. And it's really connecting the world. So that's a very good thing. So, podcasts and having independent media and those that aren't plugged in with the corporate machine and the dollars and stuff like that can really move mountains. But to kind of answer your question in regards to like what we can do about poverty, I mean, you've already stated it's a big hill to climb, but yes, listening to each other is one big thing. And then in terms of evaluating things in regards to equity and providing the same to all, and recognizing that everybody doesn't start in the same place, and we got to acknowledge and make adjustments to those imbalances. You're talking about, I mean, things like, reparations for those families that were enslaved, 40 acres and a mule, those sorts of things. I talking about when we're speaking about our native indigenous brothers and sisters and whatnot who basically have had who were here first and who've had their land basically like taken away. How do we find equitable solutions? Because you know a lot of those reservations that was supposed to be those lands are some of the most impoverished areas like in our country. So how do we take a look at that and see how we can make things better for people? I can go on and on and on about a number of things. You look at our healthcare system and people not being able to afford to get healthcare, people getting in bankruptcy just to be able to like go to the hospital. Like that's not equal. Everybody should be able to get, be able to go see something. Fruits and vegetables, like inside of like areas, and fresh fruits and vegetables, like we have community farms and stuff out here, but when you drive around, it's all like what's on every corner. It's like corner stores and shops and stuff where 99% of the time they don't have like fresh fruits and vegetables like in those spaces. So how do these companies and whatever, and I'm just using these as an example, it doesn't necessarily have to be those, but like the Sprouts, the Safeways, the Raley's, the Whole Foods, all of these places that are put in these more affluent areas, if they're placed in these areas, yes, guess what? Black people like fresh fruits and vegetables too. My Hispanic brothers and sisters love fresh fruits and vegetables too. My Asian brothers and sisters love fresh fruits and vegetables too. You know what I'm saying? It's all like, so we eat the stuff like, so it's just like making things more equitable. So I can go on and on and on. So I'll stop.
No, I appreciate that though for even bringing that up because I feel like you're right. Like sometimes like people think like like equal is the best, but being equitable, you know what I mean? And I feel like I'm gonna go like really far back, but I do appreciate the fact that you're like talking about like spreading awareness because like one thing that I'm trying to do is like very much spread awareness, and like you said, I'm creating this podcast to do all these things right. And I do want to mention that like school may teach us about history about these things, but they don't teach you enough about like what's going on right now. You know what I mean? They don't teach us about the war in Ukraine and stuff like that. They don't teach you about like what's going on in the reserves for Native Americans. I literally did not know until I did my own research about what was going on to the Native Americans, like how they're like literally. I found out like really recent that literally they like have to wait for like trucks to like get to like water trucks. If I'm pretty sure you know this, like water trucks to get to their area just to get like water for maybe like to have. And I honestly didn't even know that. And it's like horrible. Like, the media doesn't like a lot of times like we are very unaware of these issues. And I hope that like by me doing this to talk about these issues, maybe there is some sort of change. There is some sort of change with like me putting like awareness out there. And I really appreciate that you like highlighted that. And you are right. A lot of like even regardless of how we look, we want to survive. No matter like race, gender, yada yada, whatever. We want good food. Like we want to be able to eat healthy. We want to be able to have the same things as anybody. You know what I mean? And I really like appreciate that you talked about like how like literally we all want like fresh food. Like literally, like why can't we have that in healthcare? Oh my god, let's not even get to healthcare. Like it's horrible. Like you know what I mean? It's like literally like why do we have to like that's a whole nother thing, but like why do we have to pay so much just so that we can have a freaking appointment with a doctor, like a little checkup and stuff like that? That's like, you know what I mean? And it's like, man, I just appreciate you talking to me about these things, or well, just putting it out there on this because it's like it's so like every day. Honestly, I appreciate that. It is a lot, and it's so sad that like not a lot of people are very much aware, or that we don't get taught about like things that are going on right now in classrooms. And like yeah.
Well, I'll stop you there because I want to give you some credit, because the reason why I smile and I have joy so much sometimes is because I guess the fight shouldn't be only on the young to do. It should be for like, our elder statesmen and folks to like to be in that too. But I'm encouraged by, folks like yourself, June, who are doing these things and taking the time to be like, I don't know, have you ever seen The Matrix before? I always use this analogy. You seen The Matrix? So like Neo like always knew that there was like something like wrong, right? You know what I mean? It's all like something's kind of like off and whatnot. They got that whatever it is, that spidey sense about something being off, and he just continued to like seek knowledge and ask questions and find out like what was going on. Like I can't really put my finger on it. And then Morpheus and the crew come into his life and they show him the real world. And then what happens through that is he begins to discover that he has a lot of power. You know what I mean? He has a lot of power to change things. He has a lot of power to like to go. He can stop bullets. He can like, punch through walls. He can like do all this stuff. So I think, as we begin to discover these new, these things and whatnot, we have a lot of strength in terms of discovering like who we are and what we can do to be a part of the change in the world. Some people are going to be out there on the street. They're going to be out there picketing. They're going to be out there, knocking on doors, doing all that stuff. Some people make the money. Some people got to be the bank to be able to like finance things and those sort of things. Some people like work behind the scenes. They're doing like technical stuff and whatnot, and they're the ones that kind of like survey the area and like put people in the right positions to succeed. I'm a very big sports. I like sports a lot, so I use a lot of sports analogies and stuff like that. So if this is like going over your head and stuff like that, you can cut this part off. But like any any team needs a good coach. They need for football, for example, you need a good quarterback. You need a good offensive line. You need the receivers to be able to pass the ball to. Like all of these things go into a team dynamic in order to like score a touchdown and score enough points to win the game. So seeing yourself, June, be a part of this process in a very unique and dynamic way adds to the ability to be able to get educated on topics and situations and stuff that they might not have else known. And then, once they've kind of like seen the door or open up the door of what it looks like in the real world, then people can like dive in and see what power and truth that they have to be able to like help the next person. So yeah.
Yeah, like, oh my god, I just love what you said. Like, literally, like, everybody has a role in what they're doing, and like, all of it, like, we're all working together. And I really like that so much. And sometimes I do feel like, earlier I remember, when I was starting this out, I felt, no, when I started going to the school, right? When I started going to the Met Sacramento, I felt really bad because I felt like, I wasn't doing as much, and or I didn't really know what to do, and I felt like I felt very like stuck, and I just didn't like really realize like what to do. And even now I sometimes feel like stuck, like I'm like thinking like, is there a point in these videos? Is there a point, like, or is it really like reaching the right people, the right audience? And I feel like sometimes I really do doubt myself, and I doubt like what I am trying to do. But the bottom line is that I kind of really acknowledge that, like, I am doing something, and maybe it's not like really like out there yet, but I really do want to like acknowledge myself for trying to like do these things. Like, I really do want to acknowledge that. And I feel like social justice is really like, I think, what I'm passionate about, because I feel like the reason why is because I see it every day. The injustices that be going on, and like how people are living, and how, like, I feel like, this is also for my younger self as well, because I felt like even when I was younger, I was like, why do I see these people in these like nice lavish houses and stuff like that, and I'm here like an environment where I just don't like, really, that just isn't right. And it's just like, I just, you know what I mean? And I feel like, I want to continue what I'm doing, and I feel like, thank you for acknowledging that, and thank you for telling me like, hey, like, just because we're doing different things, that doesn't necessarily mean, it's wrong and stuff like that. So I appreciate that a lot. So this is literally the end of the podcast. Or is there anything else you want to say?
I would just encourage you to like continue to keep pushing, keep putting out this content.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Anglin. This is the end of the podcast. I hope you guys have a good day, and I'll be signing off as your host now. Bye.